Everyone loves the SP1200. Some people say it's the 12-bit, some people say it's the filters, but I say it's the aliasing, that high-pitched ringing sound it adds to the samples.
Mr. Doubleina, Mr. Bob Doubleina.
So why does it do this? Basically, in order to have an accurate sample, the sampling frequency must be at least twice that of the highest frequency being sampled. Otherwise, the computer can't tell what frequency it is, and it approximates and ends up adding frequencies that aren't even there in the first place. Since human hearing goes up to 20 kHz, that would require at least a 40 kHz sample rate in order to produce a good sample. And the SP1200 with its 26-something kHz produces that magic. Which is why I was so disappointed when I bought the MPC60, and it sounds nothing like that. The 12-bit 40K sample rate is so much cleaner by comparison. Even with the sound compression upgrade that allows you to go to 20K, all it's doing is just removing half the information from a sample. It doesn't add any frequencies that weren't there to begin with. But my luck changed when I found this Casio SK-1 at a garage sale for $3, as it gets me closer to what I've been wanting. Alright, let's start with something simple. Now there are a couple tricks I learned to using the SK-1 that makes it a lot easier and the sound quality a lot better. The first is that when you sample into this thing directly, it adds a percussive tick at the beginning of your sample, which you don't really want. So what I do to get around that is, I put a metronome click in front of my sample before sampling it into there. Thereby, the percussive is before the actual sample starts. Secondly, is when you play the keys on here, there's some kind of high-pass filter applied globally across them. So if you want to get a good sound, I sample it out an octave below the sound I want, because it retains more of the high frequency, and then speed it back up later. So to demonstrate, if I just sampled it out of the SK-1 at the regular key I want, it's going to sound like this. Whereas if I slow it down, and then speed it back up, you retain a lot more of the high end, and you hear that aliasing versus... And I think they apply that high-pass filter to stop the aliasing, but if that's what we want, that's what we want, right? So what I'll do when I take it into the MPC, since I recorded out of the SK-1 at -1 octave, when I hit 16 levels, it only lets you go down 100%. And I feel like these notes down here aren't that useful, so what I'll do is I'll compress the sound because that puts whatever note you are at the bottom of the range. And since this is the octave below I wanted it, that's where I want it anyways. So it's like double compressed. See, it just made it -120. That's what I didn't realize about the compression at first, is that it'll take your tuning from 0 to -120. So now, back in sounds, I'll reset that to 0, and now we have our sound. And 16 levels. Alright, how about a demo beat of that sound? You know what I think? We deserve some of those funky guitars. Because those always sound good on the SP1200, right? Unless MoFat came with so many of these, we'll see which ones work. Oh, I like that one. Alright, this is all I could come up with, but I think you get the point by now. Point. Take any sample and make it sound crappy. Nah, but where this thing really shines is in sampling Blue Collar by Bachman Turner Overdrive. Which originally that's from the beat I made 4 in the morning that people just can't get enough of for some reason. Blue Collar. Now, given the sound quality on this thing, its applications are pretty limited, and I've only used it a handful of times. For example, I used it on my recent song Yorba, Lindaz Finast, where I sampled Devotion live by Earth, Wind & Fire. And it is also very time consuming to prepare the samples for this thing, as you only get 1.2 seconds of sampling time. So, all this begs the question of, why don't I just get the SP1200 emulator that came out recently? And the answer is, I just haven't got around to it. But now is the best chance if ever. Alright, for only 20 euros. It's better than paying $5,000 for the real thing, right? So what do we do? Just drag the sample over here. Oh wait, drag the sample over here. Drag this sample, because I gotta hear how that Zapp sample sounds. Oh my gosh! Alright, now for you thought 4 in the morning was good? Alright man, I'm convinced. SK-1 was fun, but it's time to move it into the 21st century version of the 20th century. I've been waiting so long for this thing to exist. I bought the SK-1 like 3 years ago, hoping it would be a substitute, but my patience has paid off finally. I'm invincible! Thank you, Lohis, for making this, and yeah, thanks for watching.